Hello, this is Manikantam Gaddam from Oklahoma State University. Today, I would like to talk about abnormal breathing patterns. Normal breathing is an involuntary physiological process controlled by medullary respiratory center in the brain. Normal breathing is the effortless inhalation of air rich in oxygen and exhalation of air rich in carbon dioxide. This process is facilitated due to the pressure differences between atmosphere and the higher airway generations. In general, average tidal volume is about 500 ml, along with the breathing frequency of 10 to 18 breaths per minute. In each exhalation, about 13.6 to 16% of oxygen is released, along with 4 to 5% of carbon dioxide. During the metabolic and physiological process, amount of oxygen, carbon dioxide available in the bloodstream varies. Medullary respiratory center, which receives the signals about the availability of these gases, sends signals to the muscles, like which help for the respiratory process. Based on the available percentages of gases, it sends reflexes to the muscles, like either for normal breathing or abnormal breathing. So, figure here shows like abnormal breathing patterns compared over the normal breathing pattern. In normal breathing, respiratory rate is about 15 breaths per minute, which is approximately 4 seconds per cycle. While during the abnormal respiratory conditions such as tachypnea, the rate is about 1.5 times faster compared to normal. In bradypnea, um, breathing is relatively very slow, like low as 1.5 times compared to the normal breathing. In tachypnea and bradypnea, there are no changes in the inhalation and exhalation peak flow rates. While in the hyperapnea is a breathing condition with the increased inhalation and exhalation peak flow rates. And finally, hypopnea is a breathing condition with a low peak flow rates. How does how do how do abnormal breathing patterns affect the airflow inside airways? To investigate this, a parametric study consisting of various inhalation and exhalation peak flow rates at different respiratory rates were studied. uh, Geometry here shows the idealized model, which was previously used by Feng et al. 2016. This geometry consists of a mouth-to-glottis sections attached to a symmetric Weibull model until like second bifurcation. Parameters such as peak inhalation flow rate in the range of 15 to 45 liters per minute and peak exhalation flow rate of 30 to 60 liters per minute at various breathing periods or breathing time periods of 2.67 to 6 seconds are used for generating the flow profiles. So the flow profiles over here are normal on the top left corner and tachypnea on the top right corner, bradypnea on the left bottom corner, and hyperapnea, hypopnea on the bottom right corner. Uh, all the simulations were performed in ANSYS Fluent with K omega SST model. With this is a 3D simulations. Final mesh for about 2 million tetrahedral cells with the prism layers were used along with the prism layers along the walls were used. Time step for this unsteady breathing profiles was about 0.001 seconds. In Inset over here shows the geometry model with the prism layers at the inlet. Solution method is coupled scheme, second order upwind for spatial discretization, and first order upwind scheme for turbulence kinetic energy. So videos here shows the velocity contours in sagittal plane and the coronal planes for normal tachypnea, bradypnea, hyperapnea, and hypopnea conditions. Um, as the time progresses, from the normal breathing pattern, we can see that the flow inside airways increased and reached peak at the peak inhalation and later decreased with the time. Later, with the increase in the time, exhalation process started and the flow started to leave through the oral region. A similar pattern was observed in other breathing profiles. However, each breathing profile has a different intensities and strengths of flow structures. Current slide shows the flow streaming in trachea at peak inhalation. We observed that trachea and bradypnea has a large vertical flow streaming at inhalation compared to the normal condition. If very strong velocity contour regions were observed in hyperapnea due to high peak flow rates at both inhalation and the exhalation compared to the normal. Total mass flow rates were measured to compare across all breathing patterns. Non-dimensional term M2 is defined, which is a ratio of total mass flow rates in each condition to that of maximum in all conditions. This followed an order or saying like hypopnea less than normal, which is equal in tachypnea and bradypnea, which were both less than hyperapnea. Showing that within one breathing cycle, high amount of air is exhaled in normal tachypnea and bradypnea, and the least by hypopnea condition. However, since the bradypnea breathing time was unequal, a minute cumulative mass flow rate were measured as shown in the next slide. Minute cumulative mass flow rate is measured by multiplying respiratory rate to the total cumulative mass flow rates in breathing cycle. Though in the previous slide showed equal values of M2 or total cumulative mass flow rates in normal tachypnea and bradypnea for a breathing cycle, here we found the order of tachypnea greater than hyperapnea, greater than normal, which is greater than hypopnea and bradypnea. Due to this is mainly due to the respiratory rate, showing that the respiratory rate would be a key role in the amount of air you exhale. Then slide shows minute exhalation volume based on tidal volume calculated from flow profiles. This figure shows that amount of volume released in hypopnea is less than normal, which was also equal with the tachypnea and bradypnea, and which was less than hyperapnea. As mentioned in the beginning, amount of carbon dioxide released is like the amount of carbon dioxide released is proportional to the amount of air you exhale, which is in 5% in volume. So a histogram of amount of carbon dioxide exhaled in each condition was prepared to understand the acid base disorders in the respiration. Acid base disorders simply conveys about the pathological conditions such as acidosis or alkalosis. If you take the carbon dioxide value in the normal condition as a standard for the comparison here, hypopnea breathing type of breathing pattern removes less amount of carbon dioxide, causing respiratory acidosis, while hyperapnea, which removes the excess carbon dioxide from body, causes respiratory alkalosis. However, acid base explained so far in the view of respiration. In general, our metabolic process generates carbon dioxide into the bloodstream and consumes oxygen available from it. Based on this, two abnormal conditions such as metabolic alkalosis and metabolic acidosis can be found. In metabolic alkalosis, low amount of carbon dioxide is released into the blood, while during the metabolic acidosis, higher amount of carbon dioxide is generated. Assume like 25% of carbon dioxide condition, which is shown in the center, and a 25% excess carbon dioxide condition on the right, and their equivalent amount of exhalation of exhaled carbon dioxide during the respiration is shown there. We see that during the metabolic alkalosis, all the breathing patterns experience respiratory acidosis. However, except hyperapnea, which is almost near uh, to the normal value. Similarly, respiratory alkalosis is being found in all the conditions except hypopnea breathing. These two suggest that alterations in the peak flow rates can improve the acid-base disorders. To conclude, large flow streaming was observed in hyperapnea due to a large peak inhalation flow rates. Jet length at peak inhalation flow rate was higher in tachypnea. And finally, the respiratory rate with the given carbon dioxide levels can potentially estimate acid-base disorders. I would like to acknowledge OSU High Performance Computing Center, and you can feel free to reach out to my email for further questions, which is manikantam.gaddam@okstate.edu. Thank you.